Go,
Yeah.
go.
Go. On your mark.
Okay. Hi everyone. This is our third podcast that we're going to do. We're going to be talking. We hopefully don't need a disclaimer for this one, but as always, we're morons. We don't know what we're talking about. Don't take it as fact. We're going to be talking about our individual university experiences, how we found adjusting to university life, and what year we potentially found the hardest, what aspects of university we found the hardest. And obviously, as always, we're trying to create a conversation with you. We had couple of comments or one comment on the last video. We want to try and encourage that a bit more. So please do get involved with us, comment about what you want us to talk about, or if you want to get involved and come onto the podcast, then that's obviously an option as well. So yeah, we'll go from there. Basically, the opening question is, how did you find uni as an overall 3 years or 4 years, however many you've done? How have you found it? And we're not talking about specifically Christchurch, although that is the shared experience we have. Becky and I have been to other universities as well. So Becky studied in
Bedfordshire and Open University as well. Yeah.
Oh, more than the rest of us. And then I studied for basically 1 semester in Winchester as well. So there's some experiences there. Christchurch will be our shared experience. But yeah, open to the floor, what our overall experience of university was.
Well, I suppose for me overall it was very fun. I suppose I had a good experience in terms of getting involved. I think sure Chloe would agree as well, and Phil get involved with sports teams as well. And Becky, I suppose everyone involved in sports teams. That because I joined the sports teams, it might make my experience a lot more better. I think I may have dropped out if it wasn't because of that. But no, I definitely thought surprisingly, some people might agree, might disagree, but I found university actually easier than A levels. It sounds really bad, but I found it was a bit more vocational. Maybe my subject was a bit more practical. I found that a bit more enjoyable, in fact, than my A levels, because I found that was all just exams and it was a bit boring. So yeah, I thought that uni was very good fun in terms of the work was different, like different presentation, different assessment methods, which was maybe fitted my my personality better, maybe essentially.
Is that a shared statement?
What's that? No, just no.
I don't know. I think I didn't find it easier than A level. I just did very different things at A level. I did like graphic design and drama and stuff, and then went on to do psychology, which is obviously like quite booky. But I think there is this whole thing of like when you go to universities that because it's something that you've specifically chosen to do and it's something that you like are really 9 times out of 10 you're quite passionate about, so you will find it easier, I guess, because you care more about it.
That's a good point.
Yeah, maybe not always the way.
Not always, but I was similar to Jamie. As I found A level harder purely because I did law, psychology, PE and economics in A level, and I was doing those 4 subjects all side by side, doing essays for all 4 subjects at the same time. Whereas when I came to university, essentially I focused on 1 subject. So it was almost like, although within the 1 subject there was a lot more of a workload at university, don't get me wrong, but it was more, I could focus my mind on 1 thing rather than having to think about numbers to then go think about psychology and the study of sleep or whatever we were doing at the time. So that was one aspect that I did find a lot easier about university.
Yeah. Chloe, what do you think?
I think I'm not gonna lie, I can't really remember my A levels, but I remember not enjoying it. But I think first year of uni was the most difficult for me because I obviously joined in 2014 and I started a combined honours in digital media and sport exercise science. And it wasn't until like a fair way down the line that I realised I was the only student enrolled onto that combined honours. And I found that it just didn't work at all. Like they didn't fit hand in hand at all. So I missed all my exams and I didn't want to come to Christchurch. I wanted to go to Hertfordshire, didn't get accepted. So I kind of spent my first year not really knowing what I actually wanted to do. And then like in hindsight, maybe I should have deferred a year and understood more what I wanted to do. But then I strongly believe in everything happens for a reason. So I probably wouldn't be here now if I hadn't have done that year here. But yeah, I'd say that first year was probably the hardest for me.
I 100% should have deferred my first year as well. So I went to university because I don't know if you found it the same, but in my sixth form, everything's like, right, you've got to go to uni now. You're basically getting these grades to go to uni. You think you start applying. Well, we started applying almost in October, I'm pretty sure. start applying, and then you write your whatever statements, and you go through and you're like, right, okay, what university? So I think I just went, I'll go to Winchester because it's where I live. I don't know. So went to Winchester and didn't, the same as you, Chloe, I did a combined honours as well. I did sport, physical education studies or something like that, combined with psychology. And it was just horrendous, like 2 different referencing styles for start, which was absolutely awful. And it was just not the right thing. But I went because I felt like I was pushed to go, not from my parents or anything like that, but from the sixth form.
I think I did the same thing. That's how I ended up at Bedfordshire to start with, because I was like, and I got through clearing and ended up at Beds, and did like not even 1 full semester. I don't think. I think I left it like over Christmas, but I didn't go back. I didn't change unis. I just left, and went and worked for like 6 years, something like that. And to be honest, best thing I ever did, because if I'd have stayed, I was not in the right frame of mind to be studying, especially not something like psychology. That you need to be quite like, I suppose, secure for, supported, because you're doing a lot of things that are quite self-reflective, and I wasn't in a good place there. So I'm really glad that I did defer and then went away and then did like distance learning for a while, which taught me all sorts of different skills, and then came back to Christchurch. So yeah, I'm quite pleased.
Did you do psychology at Beds as well?
I did. So I started off doing advertising and marketing, because I wanted to go into advertising, but the psychology side of it, to understand how people think to sell things to them. And then I realised that advertising, 90% of it is like maths and finance, and I hated it. So I quit that. I changed to psychology when I was at Beds, but again, didn't really do well there. I didn't go to lectures, was really struggling with everything. And I realised that it just wasn't my time for uni. But a bit like you guys, I felt like I had to. Like at my college in Brock, that was all we did for about a semester, was writing your personal statement and looking at different universities, and everyone was going and visiting them and all the rest of it. And I was like, oh, maybe this is something I should be doing. Pretty much knew I didn't want to do it.
I mean, I felt like I wanted to go to university because I felt like, I think probably the bigger reason is I wanted the experience. You know, sometimes your parents, your family have been, so you feel like you want to go as well. Also, obviously, you get a degree, obviously, is the main reason why you go to university. But obviously, I wanted to be a teacher when I started, so that was the reason why I wanted to go to university initially. But obviously now, think about it, obviously now I went into this role for 3 years, so maybe it's not definitely what I want to do. I'm still thinking about what I want to do, but I've sort of come out with the thing I started with doing, maybe not wanting to do it at the end of the degree course, which is a bit interesting, which is a different, obviously, topic. But no, I think, I'll definitely recommend university in terms of the experience you get, the different skills you learn, especially for me, I found quite hard with the independent side of it. So like, you know, having to do making your own food and that sort of thing, I found quite hard at uni. So I've sort of gradually got better at that now over these years, especially most of us had an extra few years at uni, so started to get used to what it's like. But yeah, so just, that's new skills learned. Really,
it's interesting, don't you think? That it's interesting that, so me and Phil came when we were a bit older. You guys came like 18. Your experiences, even mine and Phil's, will differ massively, like in terms of what that meant. Because when I came back to uni, I'd already had a house and a baby. Like my experience wasn't learning how to, to cook myself and stuff like that. It was it was a completely different learning curve, like learning how to fit in with sports teams and run a society, and how to go out and drink, because I've never been a drinker, so I still don't know how to do it. But like learning not to get absolutely trashed.
Well, that sort of leads me on to the next part of this, is what did you find was the hardest area of adjustment? Because university is quite an adjustment to your personal life, to your academic life, to whatever life. And Becky, you've already alluded to there, and Jamie's already alluded to, Jamie's adjustment was the way he worked, or the way he understood things, and your adjustment was more in your personal life. And it's interesting to think, although we're not massively different in terms of our age, I think the youngest is, what, Jamie, are you 22?
Yeah.
Becky's 27, so it's not a huge difference. But in terms of the university, how people interact with university and where they adjust, completely different. Because personally, my adjustment wasn't to do with academics, because the way that I got taught in sixth form was very similar to the way that we get taught at university. So it's very independent. They give you stuff and you've got to go away and do it yourself. Whereas I know other people's sixth form experiences was a lot more, should we say, spoon-fed than perhaps it was at university.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think in terms of workload and stuff, mine was going back to education. So it was being out of that learning environment, having not been in it. And I was teaching. So it was like the other side of it almost. And it was realizing that actually I have to not be proactive, because I think I was anyway, but it was more a case of like organization of, you know, doing readings and making sure I was writing enough and how to write. Like I'd never really written academically.
Yeah.
Really.
No, not really. No.
And referencing.
Yeah. Well, I did graphic design. No one references in graphic design or drama. Like no one does that.
Yeah. I think for me it was like learning how to be independent in terms of like, so when I came, I was like fresh faced, like just turned 18 in August, came in September, and like the going out aspects. So when you join sports teams, it's straight away you're sort of put into this like whirlwind of a community. But I think for the first week for me was just learning that I can trust those around me. So like obviously you get put, so I was in Lanfranc, I got put with a load of strangers I'd never met before, and then we were all expected to go out during Freshers Week, and obviously I have no idea I had no idea how to like work my way around Canterbury, let alone after a night out. So I think the first few weeks I really struggled to put my trust in these people that they weren't just going to ditch me on a night out and that. But then I think I found that trust by joining a sports team.
Did you all join sports teams in the first week? Sorry, Phil. Did you all join them?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I joined at Freshers Day was when I signed up. Because obviously I played, well, cricket was my main sport, so I signed up for cricket. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. I played cricket, so I wanted to join. I went with the mindset of joining straight away. I don't know about you guys. Did you, with the mindset of I want to join the team?
Yeah,
you said
straight away. Like for me it was just I just want to know where the football team is and then I'm happy. And obviously like I joined like 6 more teams along the way, but you know football was the main one.
So when I was 18, when I went back, I didn't join anything. I was in no societies, no sports or anything. So your experience of you said about freshers, I was trying to think about what my freshers was like, and I went out with my flat, but I didn't have that like that trust, that faith there with people that I was going out with, because we weren't in a team. We were just people that all lived together, and we were so multicultural as well, like ridiculously multicultural, that there were all these things that like we weren't on the same page with. So I didn't have, my freshers was terrifying. Like I hated freshers when I first went at 18, hated it. It was, I was in the middle of Luton town centre. Like
I was about to say, that's a scary enough.
18 years old, blonde girl, like walking around going, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. It was horrid. Hated it.
It must be quite interesting. I'm not going to ask you this, Becky, but it must be quite interesting, a psychological point of view, to watch people's transition. Like to watch people coming into an environment where everybody's put into this place where they don't know what they're doing and they don't know how they're going around. They're just expected to live together. And then to see those people that potentially stay friends, because personally, I don't keep in contact with any of the people that I was in my first accommodation with. I know some people are like best friends with people in their accommodation, and to see that transition through the 3 years of university.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's almost like a big social experiment. It's like you never really get it on any other platform. It's a bit like, it's Big Brother and everything. Oh, you guys definitely felt it. I felt it before, where everything seems, it's more intense, but also time is different. Like what happens in 3 months at uni feels like 3 years, you know, and there's all this drama and stuff that goes on in literally in weeks. And you go, oh, that felt like the biggest thing in the world. And you look back on it, you go, that was nothing. It didn't mean anything.
I think the uni goes.
That's how. Yeah. Go on, Jamie.
No, that's right. I'm just saying that I think the uni went quite quick, really. I think at the time. I think because it's so bulked up on all the things you do, embrace all the opportunities available. So you do all the talks, you do all the going out, you do stuff like that. And I think just all the time just goes so quick, especially now. I mean, I feel like time's going quite slow at the moment, but obviously before it does go quite quick the whole year generally. But yeah.
I think it's because it's so broken up though. So you come in September, you then don't really do any studying until October. You then got 6 to 8-ish weeks of studying, and then you're in Christmas break. And then you come back and you're not really here till in January. And then February, you've got February, March, and a bit of April. And then you've got basically a month off for Easter, and then you're done. So it's so broken up, and you're going home so much that actually it doesn't really feel like you've been at uni that much. So your first year, you sort of blink and it's gone.
Yeah.
And then Or what? It looks like there's a pondering thought on Becky's tongue there.
No, I was thinking about, because you just said, oh, we go home and stuff, and that breaks it up for you because it's that differentiation. I never go home. Home is uni.
Yeah.
And I worked at the uni over summer because it just made sense. So for me, what has been 4 years actually feels like 8, like, because I've done the summer as well. It's really weird. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it hasn't gone quick because I feel like I've literally been there forever.
Also, you've seen both sides. So not only did you stay because in the holidays because this is where you lived, but you were also a student, and then on the flip side, you were then working. So you saw the university from both sides. So it was probably felt doubly extended.
Yeah, it just feels like it's gone on forever.
And yet you want to do another year, so it can't be that bad. And the PhD.
I was going to say, yeah, I'm basically going to be here for like, I think it will be, what, 4, 5, 6, about 7 years, nearly a decade until I actually leave.
Wow. If that's not a statement for pro Christchurch, I don't know what is.
Or just that they're cheap and it's close to home.
So Jamie sort of alluded to it, or actually Jamie and Becky sort of alluded to it earlier. If you were to go back and do uni again, so I don't mean have this experience and then go on to a university and do another different university experience. If you were to do Christchurch all over again, what would you potentially do differently?
Specifically Christchurch.
Yeah, so because obviously that's our shared experience. So I'll start, for example, mine would be to join more. So obviously I joined football, and that's great. And football has given me a platform to do basically what I am doing now. I wouldn't really be here without football and creating those connections, creating those friends, and all that sort of different stuff. But I would join more, specifically thinking about socks as well, and thinking about different things, getting involved with different areas. Whereas before I was captain and then president, so I was very involved in football. But I would definitely diversify a little bit. But then you've got to find that balance between still doing your studies and then doing a million other things behind those studies.
I think it's hard because it's hard for me because I think I did embrace all the opportunities available. So I joined a couple of teams. I didn't join any societies, which maybe I could have done. But I did help out of open days. I did work for a bit for the uni, did like interviews, to help in student interviews for like prospective students. So I think I did quite a lot more for the course than other students did.
You were quite involved within the actual primary ed course, weren't you?
So I helped out with interviews, helped out with open days, did talks in front of 300 prospective students. Our course is like one of the most popular courses here. So, that sort of thing. So I just felt like I did quite a lot of stuff, but it's really hard to think of one thing I could have done differently. I don't really know, to be honest. I'll get back, have a little think, and I might be able to think of something.
You don't. There doesn't have to be an answer. You could say nothing. So
I think I'd say nothing. I mean, as much as I wasted like a year doing a combined honours that actually didn't do anything for me, I think I learned a lot in that year anyway. And also, if I were to change that and defer a year and come to Christchurch the year after, I don't think I would be in this situation, because I had 4 years of understanding what I wanted to do, what I wanted out of my experience at uni. I had 4 years to understand the Students' Union and to build the confidence to go for Sabb. Like, if you'd told me in my first year that this was going to be me in like 5 years' time, like I probably would have cried. I was such a nervous little ball. I just, throughout that 4 years, I've just grown in so much confidence. So I don't think I would change anything. And also third year for me was I think third year was the easiest. In my third year, I literally did everything. I was on committee, 3 different committees. I just threw myself out there because I just thought, if this is going to be my last year and I do run for Sabb and I don't get it, at least I want to look back on third year and say I did everything I possibly could. If that makes sense. But so I don't think I'd actually change anything.
I think that's a good tip for new students, isn't it? Just try and embrace everything, because you only get this opportunity once in your lifetime. Most people do generally. So, and you get to go to university once, or unless you do a master's or PhD. But
even when you do that, it's completely different. It's a totally different experience. I only got involved with the student union. I only got involved with anything else in my master's year. I think if I could go and do it again, don't get me wrong, I think I did it the only way I could do it at the time, because I had a newborn baby. I can't go out on a Wednesday night when I've got a 3-month-old that I have to go home and breastfeed. Not really the thing. But I think I would rather get involved with, I wanted to do a sport really for fitness. I didn't want to be on a committee or anything like that, but I'd like to do things like rugby and football that I actually enjoy, and I have always enjoyed, but I never did it at uni because it kind of intimidated me. Whereas now I think if I could go back and do it again, I'd probably do something similar, or even socks. I didn't get involved with SciSoc until masters. I'll probably do that earlier. Maybe not committee, but I definitely want to be involved with it because it's great for your career progression as well. It taught me a lot.
It's interesting how none of us said we'd take our studies more seriously and definitely get a first, because I don't think any of us got firsts.
Hello, got a first in my masters. Thank you.
We were talking undergrad here.
Yeah.
All right, I got a 2-1. Yeah, fair.
I never got a first until my third year. So I found that in my course, I specialised more in what I wanted to do. So in my final year, you could actually pick the title of your your essays. And those are the essays that I ended up getting a first in. Everything else before that was picked for you, and it was stuff that I wasn't passionate about. So third year, I don't know how I managed it, but I got a first somehow.
I only got first in one assignment in the whole 3 years, so that was the last ever assignment as opposed to the last ever assignment.
I
Got out on a high,
having this
yeah,
conversation.
exactly.
It doesn't even matter. Like the higher you go in education, they're so subjective. I say this to students now. I'm literally like, it's one person or two people's opinion of your work. Like you're more than a mark on a piece of paper. And like if you take your studies and you enjoy them, that means more than getting a first or whatever.
It's also about what you come to university for, which we've all alluded to already. So I came to university obviously for a degree, but all the skills that you pick up along the way, whether it's time management, whether it's organisation, whether it's just confidence, whether it's whatever, all those skills are actually far more valuable to you. And being able to speak to people, which is massive, is far more valuable than just getting a first. So if you get a first, but you can't communicate with people, you can't do whatever, it's redundant, it's pointless. So
I mean, a lot of people have degrees. I'm pretty much everyone has a degree now when you go to a job. Not everyone, but a lot of people have a job. So it's about what other stuff you can offer, isn't it? As you say, about the other skills you said about, public speaking, confidence, organisation, those sort of things, isn't it? Is that how else you can offer to give them back to the company or whatever you're applying for? So,
I think there's also something. So I was speaking to my undergrad supervisor about it the other day, and we were comparing so the masters that I did was kind of vocational, but it was a taught masters, so it had like the taught aspect of it where you had to write academically, blah blah blah. Then there's a real practical element of it, which is like understanding when you go into the community, working with offenders and things like that. And we were talking about how it's really interesting that our entire year have almost split. So you can see the people that halfway through the year decided that the vocational stuff, that they were going to go out and practice. So then they're going to follow the VPS route and actually become practitioners. And then you have people like me who halfway through went, definitely not what I want to do, even though I thought that's what I wanted to do. And actually now gone down the research route. And it's kind of like, so that's also what education can do for you. It's not about the grades that you're getting. It can be about making your mind up about something. So you might not be sure going into a degree, I really enjoy it, but I'm not really sure what aspect. Sometimes it can just be a case of you do it and you go, that's definitely not what I want to do. That's a box ticked. That's it now. You don't have to go back and do that. Like it's helping you limit your choices or like home in on your focus, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So when I went to Winchester, I thought I wanted to be like a sports psychologist, for example. Did it and was like, this is absolutely not what I want to do. But you learn along the way, and that's obviously other things within that. So Jamie, just using you as an example, you did primary ed. You're now not certain that you definitely want to be a standard, if I can use that term, primary education student or teacher. You perhaps want to go do something else, and that's worth the process as much as getting a 2-1 or 2-2 or a first.
I think that's what's really important, Phil, is you talk about the process. Like people think that education is something they go in, they do some assignments, they tick a box, they get a piece of paper, but actually the process of it is more important than the degree that you'll get at the end of it ever. And I think people need to remember there's like different forms of learning. Mastery learning is kind of what we should be aiming for, which is where we go to learn for the sake of learning and for that whole process, not just to tick a box.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that sort of leads me on to the next question around, this is quite a broad question, but do we think that university as a whole, let's not get into a system because we might be here for a while, but do we think do we think that university is worth it? And that doesn't necessarily mean money. That can mean the time that goes into it. That can mean the effort. That can mean whatever. But do we think that university as a whole is worth it?
Yeah.
All big questions.
I think I think the experiences you gain, the extra skills that you wouldn't get if you didn't go to university, is obviously good. Obviously, you get qualification out of it. Is obviously the main reason we said about that earlier. You go to university, but I think about the friends as well. You make friends for life, don't you? You have the good social time. You get to do basically. You get to have 3 years of almost fun / working, obviously, but more a lot of fun, which you won't be able to get any time probably when you're a full-time job. That's it. You're not going to come back and experience what you had at university. So I think it's definitely once a nice opportunity. And don't get put off by the money as well. The money's not, you don't have to pay that back for ages. You can just pay that small amounts each month once you get like over a certain amount. I can't remember exactly what it is, but so don't get put off with the money as well, I think.
It is an interesting conversation around how much university costs, and when you talk to different people about the fees, you get a range of different answers. You do get that answer that you just gave, Jamie, around don't worry about the money because it's only X amount a month. And I just wonder if that's because that's my approach as well. I wonder if that's because we've come from a place of middle class privilege, essentially. So we've always had that spare income to go, oh, it doesn't matter if we get paid £200 a month because we'll just take it off because we know we'll have whatever job afterwards. And I wonder if it's for other people, £200 a month is a scary thought. That actually, oh, what? I'm going to have to pay £200 a month for an education where I could just go get a job, not have that extra cost and work from there. So it's interesting that way up between previous life experiences and cultural issues and things like that. Not issues, that's the wrong word. Cultural differences that you and I perhaps share, but compared to other people that are at our university as well.
I think when I first floated the idea of going to university, I'm the first person in any of my family to ever have gone to uni. Definitely the first person to get a master's and a PhD, and do a PhD. So when I first talked about it, the thing that I got from my mum, my dad, from other family members was, that's so much money. Like that's like that. Do you really want to spend that amount of money on something that you might not enjoy, that you don't know if you're going to like it, if you're going to be good at it, blah blah. Why don't you go and do something solid that you know that you're good at?
A solid career.
Solid career.
Yeah.
So I went to be an entertainer instead because, you know, solid career choice.
I think they were more meaning like, you know, plumbers and like electricians and like.
Well, this is the thing then, you talk about cultural differences, and like I was brought up in South London and my dad worked for British Gas, and you know there was very much a trade from the minute you leave school, and that was what a lot of people in my school did. They went out and the blokes went and did trades, plumbers and builders and bricklayers and whatever, and the women went out and did hairdressing or whatever. And that's not me generalising, that is legitimately what most of my year went and did. They went to college to do vocational subjects, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go and do something very different. But yeah, the money was definitely, for me, it still is. Like I talk about it now, but my brain's worth something like 80 grand. And in my head, I'm like, that's a shed load. That's a house. That is a house. Is it worth it? Hopefully. We can only hope. No, I think overall it probably is.
Chloe, got anything to add?
As a whole, like in general, yeah, I do think university is worth it, especially if you like throw yourself into like the activities and the opportunities side. But what I've found that really isn't worth it, that you have to pay money for, is like accommodation and housing. I think Lanfranc for me in first year was great, loved it. But as soon as you become independent and start having to pay bills, you really realise actually how much money racks up. But I've never been in a property where I felt like home until this one. But like in terms of like going through different letting agencies, they've been awful. So I think that part of uni wasn't worth it. Like the living with the people was great. I wouldn't change that. But yeah, I think housing was, I'd had a difficult time with that. But apart from that, university as a whole, I think is great.
Do you think though those bad experiences with housing has just set you up so you then have the skills when you do go out and you now know, right, he's dodgy, or he's taking us for a ride, or they're doing this and they're doing that you now know, and you've built up that resilience and those skills to go, right, well, I know you're taking the mix, so I'm going to leave now.
Definitely. Like I've been through 3 different letting agencies and every single one was just a pain, like really just try to rip you off. And this is the first year that so I'm now with like a private landlord, and like it's brilliant. Like she's really good. But yeah, you're right. I think it has taught me to be a bit more resilient, perhaps.
That's a massive skill for life as well, because you'll always need housing. You'll always need to find housing, and knowing the good place and the bad people to avoid are really useful.
Yeah.
Can help with just general judge of character as well. So if you're good at judging a character straight away, you can take that across any avenue of your life, really.
And that's the thing with like our landlord, like we met her straight away. Whereas these letting agencies, you're not going to meet the big top dog in them. You're just going to meet the people who drive you around and say, oh, like this is the house sort of thing.
Jamie and I don't even know who our landlord is.
No, we've never met them.
Yeah. I didn't know who my landlord was last year either. I've only ever met my landlord in year 2.
I think in terms of, if we're talking about negatives and stuff of it, like maybe it's not something I would change because I don't think you can change it. But for me, going as a mature student, who, I didn't have the same housing issue that you guys have, but it was more about not being recognised because you don't fit into a box. Like you're not your 18 to 21-year-old student, but you're also not a single person living in a shared house, which is what they expect mature students to be doing or whatever. Like, so that was, for me, that was really difficult. And having the understanding there, not just from our uni, but from other students and government as well. Like you guys all know the ag that I had with like universal credit and things like that. Like if you don't fit into a box, if you're not going and doing the normal pathway through life, it's really difficult. But again, like you said, Phil, it actually makes you more resilient, because you've overcome those obstacles already, so almost prepared for them next time they inevitably occur.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, how you can learn, well, when you take a step back, you realise you've learned so many skills, not necessarily through university itself, but just being a part of that and moving away and doing whatever you've learned, so many skills that you hadn't necessarily realised that you had learned.
Not even just skills either, Phil. Have you noticed, you guys, I haven't actually spoken to you about this before, but have you noticed that you've almost got like a new vocabulary? So you understand things like feminism more, or LGBT rights, or kind of just the differences in the world. Without university, I wouldn't really know how to word that.
I think that more came from being Sabb though. More than maybe uni. Maybe it did, but then it was fleshed out a bit more to me being Sabb, and I understood and I wanted to understand more.
That's probably the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
The want to understand. So I probably slightly similar, Chloe. I did gain an understanding of those terms and wider life coming to university, because I came from Winchester, if people don't know, and it's a very white middle class place. Only hadn't really experienced black culture or anything like that until I came to university. So in that time, I grew as a person exponentially, because suddenly I'm experiencing different cultures and how different people do things. But it was in particular when you became Sabb that you started really taking an interest in, right, so I've experienced that culture. What does that actually mean though?
Yeah.
Right, so what does it mean in a university context? What does it mean in a social context? What does it mean, rather than just experiencing the culture that you do when you go through the 3 years of university?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, you understand more from being a Sabb anyway, from maybe between a student and being a Sabb, you can understand more what's going on in the world, different liberation groups, how they, culture, that sort of thing. Yeah, I agree.
I think it's interesting as well that I agree with you that Sabb probably makes it a bit more prevalent because we're doing it on a day-to-day basis, like those are the students that we represent. But I think for me, just being at university, definitely in my last year, finding like the LGBT community was massive for me, because I'd never understood there was a place for it, for people like me, and then you start learning all this new language and you go, oh well, that's why I feel the way that I feel, and then you can identify things that have happened to you in the past and you go, well, that makes sense now, I have a word to name it, and it gives you a bit of power. I felt very empowered leaving my master's year because I'd had the language to express myself a lot more.
Yeah, it allows for a personal journey, doesn't it? You do find yourself, if you want to, I hate that term, but you do find I think the terminology is a key thing. You find the terminology to describe how you've always been feeling, perhaps, which is something that you do get from university or just from education, but university extenuates that. I don't know how long we've got left on the recording.
Yeah, I think we've only got a few minutes left. So I think about.
Okay, well, I'm at the end. I'm at the end now, anyway. And I the only thing that I sort of wanted to sort of go into, which we've already really discussed, and that I think I know the answer for, but I want to sort of shift this to Chloe a bit because she's in this sort of industry. The question is, would you do uni again if you had the choice? And I think we all would, as the conversation's going. I think what I want to ask Chloe is Chloe, if you wanted to be a videographer or an editor or a whatever, because you did film, radio and television, if you wanted to do that, would you still recommend coming to university, or would you recommend going to build your portfolio straight from the start and going to edit videos and going to film things? Or do you think you gain enough skills to then do both of them together by coming to university?
I think, what I'd say is try and understand if it's media, try and understand what specific media you want to go into. Because it wasn't until my third year that I realised I kind of want to do like videography and content creating and link that in with sport. So I think if you know you want to go into something, try and like find your niche perhaps, and then you can tailor that to whether there's a degree out there for you, or whether you just want to go off and get work experience and work through the industry and work up that way. But just try and find exactly what it is you want to work within in that industry. That's what I do differently anyway.
Yeah, because that is one of the arguments sort of against university, I suppose, is the ones that, oh, well, I'm doing a bit more of a practical, is probably not the right term, but I'm doing a bit more of a practical subject area. I could just go and learn these skills by learning in a job. But it's that toss up between what you want really, and then all those other skills that we've already spoken about at university already, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyone got any final comments before we wrap up podcast 3?
I think it's just really nice to be able to reflect. You guys obviously are all leaving. This is literally the last bit of your journey now, unless you decide to go back and do like another.
Maybe.
You never know. You might be travelling and find yourselves and then want to come back and do a master's. But yeah, so it's nice to reflect. And for me, it's nice to reflect before I then go and do something else, because it means I'll understand education a bit more.
Yeah. What is quite funny, I've just remembered, so the football girls watched last week's podcast and saw the bit about me talking about a master's, and they've now all band together and they're planning on emailing the university to create a master's just for me. Like, good luck with that, girls.
Why don't you just negotiate, get your master's for free?
I know, yeah.
Yeah, become a Sabb and get your degrees for free.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we'll wrap it up there. Please do engage with us in the comments. We would sort of suggest what you want to speak to us about. If you want to come on and do a podcast with us, that's fine as well. We will eventually, they don't know this yet, but we will eventually be doing a podcast with next year's Sabbs as well. So if you have any questions for them, then let them know. If you have any questions for Becky, then let me know so she can't see them. And we'll go from there. But yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.